Hey everybody, Alex, Geek of all trades here, and today I'm joined with the co-founders of Lokotech, and we're going to talk about this amazing new efficient script miner that is coming out really soon. So today we are joined by Ben and Christian from Lokotech, and then of course there's Chump Change and Dad Max Voltage over here. Really, we just wanted to have a conversation and talk about what we talked about in DC and this new awesome project that's coming out and how efficient it is, and answer some questions that some people in the community and some of our friends really had that we didn't get to ask because there was so much going on at the time. Ben, Christian, thank you for joining us today, guys. I know it's early for me. I don't know what time it is over there, probably mid-afternoon.
Yeah, about 4 p.m.
First off, Lokotech, fabless semiconductor company, right? What does that mean? What does fabless semiconductor company mean?
Well, Fabless Semiconductor is basically a company that designs and develops IP to be produced in the silicon industry. So we're not associated with the fab. We're not anything. It's much like ARM, Sematics, NVIDIA, ARM. Like they're all fabless semiconductors.
So you do the design work. You don't do the hardware making the chips and the boards and things like that.
Yeah, specifically for this ASIC, we'll be at Global Foundries in Malta, New York.
Oh, okay, cool. Good deal. Yeah, some people were asking where the manufacturing was going to take place, and I know you said it was in the U.S., but I didn't know exactly where it was. That's cool.
Well, the manufacturing will take place in the U.S. and in Norway, and specifically the wafers will be made at Global Foundries. So, I mean, we got a bunch of I see assembly partners that will be able to package it, and that goes off after it's manufactured at Global Foundries.
Chump Change, did you have any questions for Ben? Let's see what you got to say.
Yeah, so I know the wafers and the chips have been like confusing people. Is there any way you can explain that? Like how many wafers, how many chips per wafer, or whatever the design is on the board? Can you just kind of give an overall rundown? Because I know people have been asking, like when we showed these prototypes, proof of concept, everyone's like, oh, but that doesn't add up. It doesn't seem right. But I'd just like you to explain it properly for everybody.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, typically when you're designing a chip, you first off have your preliminary designs that go off to simulation to make sure that you can actually have something that you can bite into when you start the design. And that's what we actually made a breakthrough in 2019 is we actually developed a design that would be extremely efficient on simulations. So what companies do, they don't just, oh, we got a design, we go out and we put it out at the fab, they make the chip and then we test it. They make the chip, we test it. They make the chip. No, they're using these companies that are multi-billion-dollar companies to where they know that the software is plus or minus a few percent off of what silicon will actually be produced. In our case, you're typically grabbing, I can't tell you who, but we're typically grabbing IP from other or fabless semiconductor companies, and then we put that together. And since we're on a 12 nanometer node, it's not a risk wafer anymore. All the IP has been tested, and there's small adjustments here and there that happen to some IP, within their massive libraries that will be updated over time if someone uses it and they find, a variation to what some of the specs are. However, what was very important for us is our custom circuitry, which does not lay in this massive library that you basically, grab and put together these ASICs with. The custom circuitry, that's what we were able to test on the MPW run. So then we were able to validate our design because not only did the simulations reach out correctly for the analog parts in our design, but we were able to show that this is going to work now because we verified our design on silicon, and you don't have to verify the IP that's in the library because tons of people have already put it on their silicon. So that's basically I guess it's harder to understand when you're on the mining aspect and you're not really in deep in our industry, but that's basically just a simplistic version of what we've been able to accomplish and why we've had to wait so long before we've actually been able to open up pre-orders, because we wanted to validate the custom circuitry that we're having on this or on our design.
So now the S1 hash blade. So now how many tiles are I guess projected to go onto this blade, and then how many chips on each tile? Like, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so the tile is basically a segment of a chip. And tile 1 specifically is the bread and butter because that's our hash engine. And part of that is it's 255 tile 1s, and then we have 1 compute tile, which is tile 0. And the compute tile is another awesome thing in our ASIC because no one else has done it before, but we're able to control each one of those tiles basically to turn it off or keep it running if it's hashing or not, to get rid of the waste power.
Okay.
And it also allows us to have like frequency optimization or the clock frequency optimization in real time as well. So as your chip degrades, it'll still run at the most optimized per performance frequency.
Interesting. Mr. Max Voltage, do you have any questions?
I do. I was just actually writing some things down to make sure I didn't forget anything. So there's been a lot of talk about, timeline and with regards to the chip, but obviously there's a lot more involved in that. That would be the board design, and actually getting that board design manufactured. So I guess my first question is where are you at with the actual design of the board?
So the actual design of the board is pretty much laid out. I mean, all it is the support and components that are going to be decided on and the final dimensions after the new year. We actually are having Global Foundries. I don't even know if I can say that, Christian. Can I say that? I don't want to jump off the cliff here, but we'll be able to, the system design, I'll say, I don't want to get in trouble, but the system design it's ongoing. It'll be completed within the first, I would say 2 months, 2.5 months of the next year. And with TapeOut expected in pretty much early Q2, then we'll be going from there.
Okay. With that design, obviously the components, some components are going to have some lead time issues. Has there been any analysis to see if there's any critical path lead time issues that could be, 18, 24 months out that you're going to have to find a source for? Well, in my experience, that's been the biggest issue of holding up manufacture.
Yeah, that's actually part of our plan. We are actually designing a BOM that is dynamic, which it already has the pinouts for the other components. I think the biggest lead time is not in components for us. The biggest lead time would be in packaging itself with our IC assembly partners. But that's with everybody. That's not just us. But I mean, I would say probably the biggest bottleneck for really any components would be the communication protocol, whether it's across the PCIe or whether it's across a UART or a SPI. It's even the FPGA. We're planning for worst case scenario, and we want to be able to mitigate that issue, of course, because we want to get these products to the customers as soon as possible. Because in our industry, time's money. So, but I mean, actually, one thing that is good about our product is there is no assembly required other than the 10 stack, which is basically plug and play from our side anyways, and downloading software, making sure everything's optimized to be running before we send it out. As for the hash blades, it's literally pick and place. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people and they've said, oh, it has to be really expensive to manufacture US or, Norway. No, it's not. If you pick and place, it's the same price everywhere.
Yep.
It doesn't matter where you're at, but as soon as hands touch the component, that's where the difference is. Yep. So, I mean, if you're in India, it's going to be way cheaper. If you're in Norway and you're getting paid Western wages, it's going to be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, pick and place is kind of a dime a dozen. It's when you have to bring wave or manual process into it that becomes a lot more expensive.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we wanted to lean into, especially on our first product. We saw a huge advantage of Ethereum going to proof of stake, and we took that opportunity to where there is a lot of infrastructure out there for the old GPU miners, which a lot of people are actually still GPU mining, and we wanted to take advantage of that because cuts down on shipping, it streamlines manufacturing, even testing. We're looking at doing needle tests on each board, so we can assure a good quality of product that when we actually ship it out. I mean, granted, in our industry, any manufacturing industry, on average, you're going to look at about 2% failure rate, but we have an advanced RMA program for returns to take care of that. So if you get a blade and it's not working properly, you can ship it back. We'll ship it directly to you. There's not going to be a month, 2-month wait time of getting your product back and start mining again. So awesome. We've dealt with all these issues mining, especially Christian, more than all of us put together. unfortunately. But we're trying to take those market failures and really make it a competitive advantage of us.
I think you looked at my questions, because my next question was regarding a test fixture, and you just kind of pretty much hit that with the needle test. So
yeah, we actually have a really good test companies here. I can't mention who it is, but they're very good. They got big names on their client list.
So I guess my last question is, with all that kind of out of the way, do you have a reserved period of time with a PCBA EMS manufacturer?
Do we have
a place in line, basically a reserve time where it's like, okay, you've already told them that this is the time frame as to when we're going to have all the parts, hit go? Because sometimes, and I don't know, I've been in the industry for a little bit, but a lot of times that capacity is difficult to get.
Yeah. Depending on the volume. I mean, of course, if you had sold millions and millions of units, I mean, of course, that's different to selling, 20 to 50,000 units in our first batch, or 30,000, or wherever it actually ends up at. So we don't have that in place because currently, as I told you, the system design is still ongoing. The BOM is not finalized, but we are taking those considerations in place to where we do have components and support components that are compatible.
And actually, what you hit on before actually was a good point too, because to set up PickInPlace is so much faster than setting up Wave and trying to get manual processes, reserve time and all that kind of stuff. So it's not as big of a deal for setup time.
I'm not worried at all at PickInPlace. I mean, our biggest they say jump, and we jump is the foundry. That's something you cannot replace, which is unfortunate. But I mean, it's very expensive to set up those foundry lines. I mean, look at that. Billion upon billion upon $billion infrastructure for that. But I am glad that we'll be producing and manufacturing in the U.S. I mean, I'm originally from Indiana, so I mean, the more that we can do stateside, the better for the industry. I mean, we'll be the first chip company that has an efficiency gain this much that actually people will be interested in.
You talked a little bit about this chip, not necessarily the chip, but the technology behind it being able to be used in an AI platform like Edge AI in the future. I just want to confirm that that's not going to be part of what the Hashblade does. Like, it's a completely separate product line. It's going to be its own, launch and its own industry essentially by itself. It's just that, this technology behind the chip that you're using for the Hashblade can have multi-purpose, right?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, Bitmain's done it. I mean, Intersilicon's done it. They have inferencing ASICs because they also had script ASICs. I mean, you can reuse a lot of the architecture in the chip. It's just ours is blazing fast. So we don't know. I mean, off the tip of my tongue, I can say that we're about 1 petaop per second at the chip level. But that's not a good form of measurement when it comes to AI. You actually need to put it into like Alex or PyTorch, to test it. So, and to tell you the truth, I mean, I wouldn't say any of us, on the team are, quite fluent in that industry. I mean, it's quite new. It's starting to take off, and it's just kind of hit us at the right time because we've been working on this ASIC for so long now that we're almost 3 years ahead of everybody else. So. We see that as a huge benefit for us coming forward. But again, once we have the commercial ASIC out, not all ASICs are going to be going to mining. We got some safety protocols basically, because if the AI ASIC does as well as we think it will, it'll be a lot more.
I asked because a lot of people, in the community and stuff think, well, right now, like the things like Vast AI, where we're putting these GPUs that have been sitting around since the Ethereum days back to work and making a couple dollars a day per machine kind of thing. They think, hey, this Hashblade, we can do the same thing and just put it on Vast. And I just want to put that to bed because that's not the case.
Yeah, no, you won't be doing AI. I mean, it's we do have we will allow the AI, but if we have to open up that port, then it'll be AI and mining.
Gotcha.
It'll be either both or just one. So,
but the blade wouldn't support the memory you need and all that stuff for AI.
You had mentioned, I think in one of the slide decks that you provided to us, that over 2,300 unique subscribers to the program thus far. Are those unique subscribers pre-order units, or that individuals that have the ability to pre-order? Can you kind of explain what that is a little bit more?
Yeah, so we had 2,300 unique subscribers that actually subscribed. There was a few that subscribed after validation came in, but a majority of them, a lot of people have been waiting for a while, actually. I mean, since we opened it, over a year. And those are just people that were able to have the ability to purchase the last 14 days, because we actually officially opened it up to the public on Friday. The reason being is, like, we want to test the system out, make sure that we wouldn't, be able to handle if we do get a flood of orders, especially on the crypto side, because the crypto side, we don't just want money to disappear. All crypto that's taken in is basically exchanged for fiat immediately, because we don't want the FX risk when our costs are actually in US dollar. There's no reason as a company that's supposed to be delivering a product that's going to be holding on to I don't want to say it's a risky asset, but it is extremely volatile. And you don't want somebody to be paying and then all of a sudden it's $200 instead of $2,000. So all that money goes into the client account, and it sits in the client account until they take the order from Global Foundries.
Oh, okay.
To start manufacturing, pretty much.
So all those pre-order funds are definitely going towards manufacturing of the products.
Correct. We legally are not allowed to use any funds on NRE cost or, any one-off costs associated with the foundry or manufacturing or any of that. It has to be specifically for the manufacturing of units.
But FTX got away with it. You guys would be fine, right?
Oh, I'm not in the Bahamas either. I'm not that tan. Let's say that.
Very true. Yeah.
My hair is not as fluffy as his.
Real quick, I think that's a good segue just to ask, like, what's the refund policy? Because I know a lot of people are asking that, like, if this has production issues, or if people don't want to keep waiting, like, is there any type of refund policy when it comes to that?
Yeah, I would just say reach out, and then any money that's refunded, you incur the cost of that for refunds. I mean, which is, if you wire transfer it out, it's going to be $10 or so,
right?
Something like that. But that's it.
Okay. All right, that's perfect. Yeah.
We people that paid in crypto will still have to have a wire refund. Like we're not holding crypto, so we wouldn't be paying you back in crypto.
Right, it'd be like immediate sell and then put in the bank account and then.
Correct.
Right, makes sense. I mean, it's
not really immediate. It takes about an hour.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. It is what it is, at that point. Now, when it comes to purchasing the cards, I know you talked to us about it a bit, how you guys are going to limit the bigger companies coming in and buying like a whole bunch of them. But is there, like, for a personal order, is there a limit per, like, how many hash blades you can purchase?
Well, as of now, we got about 128 hash blades that you can purchase through the website. Reason being is we got basically two different variables on that. We got one, we see that as people that are willing to spend the money, have the cash in the account, and let it sit in the client account. And then anything over that, basically, we're giving you have a 5% down payment. There's no reason to be holding on to liquidity until we need it from the foundry. But granted, that money is locked up for that. If we hit within the specs, plus or minus 10%, and you can't pay that second payment, then we will keep the 5%, of course. But it does limit somebody's exposure to having liquidity risk going into the next halving, because we know a lot of farms that are both altcoin, Bitcoin mining, and we know that we're having a decent, good time now, but things can change on a dime, and I don't want to see somebody, going bankrupt or having a hard time just because we have money sitting in the account. So the larger guys, facilities, we definitely want to help out. But for private purchases, if you're leaning more into that, that's more on a case-by-case basis. I know large actors, we're capping them out about 2 megawatt, and we only want about 6 to 8 to 10 people for that. And then that's about it. Everything else, we really want to push to B2C. And if someone comes in and wants 500 cards, that's fine. Somebody comes in with 200 cards, that's fine. So.
Okay. So just a reasonable purchase. Comparative to your size, I guess, and what you're doing with it. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Real quick. So can you tell us how many pre-sales you have right now?
No, that would be insider.
Okay. I had to ask. Max, do you have any questions as well?
The only other one I had, which I thought was kind of interesting, the terminology you use, and kind of you're still using kind of the shareholder but not publicly traded. So typically, at least in the US, if you're publicly traded, then you use shareholder. If you're private, then it's investor. So can you explain why you use shareholder versus investor?
No, it's because I'm on the board. Christian's on the board. We own a decent amount of the company, and when we speak for the shareholders, you mean for the insider information?
No, I just mean in general in the way you're structured. Typically, if it's a public company, you use shareholder. Otherwise, it's used investor. So I was kind of curious. Maybe it was a something under foreign law or something like that. That's why I was curious. Where you have share price. Are you a public company?
Yeah, we're on the secondary market, basically on the Euronext Growth in Norway.
Oh wow.
I guess that should have been the question I asked in the first place. So let me rephrase that. Are you a public company?
Yeah, we're a public company, but we're not traded on the main exchange. When we raised the $13.5 million, that was basically contingent on the investors that put the money up. They wanted to be public because they want liquidity. They don't want a lockup period or anything. But that's how the Norwegian market operated. I would say that it'd been way better for us to be private because and then come to market like at this time. But I mean, we got dragged through the mud quite a bit because we raised the capital, we started the design, we actually made an awesome design. However, it wasn't dense enough at the wafer level. So basically, at a wafer that's going to cost you, $7,500. That's without packaging, would be like 2 ASICs.
Ooh.
So you're not going to be making money. It would have been very good for us self-mining, but we all know how this industry would have been if we came to market and we were just self-mining with the awesome tech. So we had to go back to the drawing board. Shareholders, share price took a nosedive, but it's completely understandable because of that. So, but we had to be better for the industry. So we went back to redesign. We actually found a few improvements that we could have done, and that's where we're at now.
So how much longer is your pre-sale going to be open? Like, when are you planning on closing that? You can't order until it's out, ready for production kind of thing.
No, I would probably say that we're just going to keep it open until we get to a number that would be adequate for the foundry.
Okay.
It's an uphill battle right now because we are requesting a lot of money. It's about a little under 2-year payback period, I guess, for 10 cents per kilowatt hour. But a lot of people don't understand it's about 65 cents for you to break even, and the L7 is about 15 cents to break even on the price per kilowatt. And there's a lot of huge benefits that we're doing. I mean, we're limiting production. We'll have active hash rate monitoring because we don't see anybody that's going to be coming to market that's going to be able to compete with us, given the node that we're on. I mean, we're on the 12 nanometer LP plus node. We take this down to the 7. You double the hash rate, you half the power consumption, and we'll shelf it. I mean, we don't want to produce on the 7. There's no reason to if no one can keep up with us. But if the competitor does come, then we do have something. They have to beat us by match us by 400%. They got to, do 800%. So, but that's quite pricey. I mean, you're probably looking at, the prices would definitely change by the time we did that, but it'd probably be about 25 mil just to take it down to the 7 or so, 7 or 5. And that's actually another benefit. Since we're on the 12 nanometer, we're not fighting like, these huge companies like Apple, Samsung, and everybody else, because nobody wants to be on a legacy node. Everybody wants that bleeding edge technology. We're not competing. I mean, there should be a decent amount of line space, especially given if we get the volumes that we want, we shouldn't have an issue at all. I mean, we definitely want to make it to about a tier 2, and then we can really start jumping the line and pay for this, hot spots, super hot spots, all that stuff to basically get the ASIC out faster.
When you bring it to market, are you planning on changing the price of the hash blade? Like, is it going to go up or is it, potentially going to go down after you've already got your first batch, you're working on your second?
Well, I can't really comment on that just for the simple fact. I mean, with these politicians around the world wanting to create so much inflation, I mean, the prices at the foundries have definitely went up. The prices of components have definitely went up. Gas is going up. I mean, if you look at your core inflation, which is basically about 5 products, it's you had 30% in the U.S. last year. But they like to talk about, oh, this is a CPI. Let's just add 7,000 different items that no one ever buys and lower that rate to 5%.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I think all politicians need to start a company first and then they go.
Well, I guess just to follow up with that now, is there a chance that the prices of the pre-ordered units will go up at all, or are those going to be like dead flat? People that pre-ordered are in at that price, and that's what they're going to get it for. They're not going to get charged more. Like,
No. I mean,
after.
they'll be getting it for that price. I don't see. I mean, we got bigger problems if prices went up that much. Let's just say
right.
that.
I just wanted to clarify because I know people will ask that. Why didn't you ask? If the price is going to go up on pre-orders. So I just wanted to get that clarified.
So these each price is probably going to be batch noteworthy. So it's when we come out with a batch, that's the price set. Yeah, we don't want. I don't like because we're limiting production, but at the same time we are going to be self-mining, and we see a benefit on both sides of the coin of. And I know I've mentioned this to you guys before. This is why Ethereum did so well. I mean, you had guys that had nothing, that had a small little gaming computer in their home. They plugged it in, started mining Ethereum, and they're making $5-10 a day. And man, it was glory to God. And all of a sudden, Ethereum just grew and grew and grew. And those days are over now. I mean, you can't get a Bitcoin miner unless you got solar or free energy. It's not profitable at home. And you're struggling, you got an expensive paperweight. So that's really what we want to do with the Hashblade is allow everybody to get access to it, keep them profitable by maintaining, a profitable network hash rate. And then it grows exponentially. We don't see money being made off the Hashblades compared to what we see the price of Dogecoin, Litecoin, or any other coin on the script algo doing.
Are you valuing the price of the Hashblade based on like production costs and what your margins want to be, or are you basing it on market trends?
No, it's strictly off margins right now. I mean, if we were on market, it'd be dumping the price, but we know the product that we have. And plus, since we're trying to cut out the middlemen, which typically double the price for the selling of hardware equipment, we don't want people to increase their payback period just because a middleman got to touch it or sling it through us. So,
and you're going to have stock like in the US ready to ship. It's not like some of these, ASIC manufacturers where we've got to wait for slow boat from China, literal slow boat from China to show up on the shores with, pallets of ASICs that then get pushed out across the states. Like
we'll be flying it. Okay. We're not going to be boating anything.
It's a lot lighter too, so that helps.
Well, it is. I mean, if you think about it, and that's a lot of people don't understand, it's a lot lighter. I mean, it's lighter than a GPU. You don't have the fans or the heat sink or anything on it. You got 128 ASICs with support components with two, 8-pin PCIe plugs. I mean, it's nothing. So we'll be able to air freight those anywhere quite quickly as long as we're legally allowed to.
A couple of the acronyms I haven't understood that you guys were talking about. One, what is PickInPlace? And two, what is TapeOut?
And so PickInPlace is a machine that takes the components. You got these huge tape like reels, and then some of the machines are absolutely phenomenal nowadays. But it's where you can actually it flips the board and puts the components on and goes to a bake oven and everything. Okay. So if you got a board, we'll have no components on the backside to just streamline manufacturing because that slows manufacturing down. I'd probably say 20-30% just from that. But basically, you have a finished PCBA that's pinned out for all your components. You put it on, and it grabs all your components, all your ASICs, everything, puts it on, and then it'll take it to a bake oven, and it bakes the components. And then we'll go to there's a bunch more to this. I mean, you got the 3D imaging for making sure that the solder points are there's about 3 or 4 different test locations in the manufacturing line before it actually even makes to the needle test, which is more the circuitry functionality and make sure everything's working correctly. And then I would say the only thing that that would slow us down a little are the deep solder points for the power plugs. And that's it. And that's actually kind of cool to see because they got it's like a little pool of solder, and it just kind of goes over in the same line and just dips.
That's the wave.
It is so cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I'm not extremely affluent in the PickInPlace, but we've taken our fair share of tours, and it's mind-boggling what actually goes on behind the scenes.
So essentially, it's just the automation piece of the assembly line.
Yes, correct.
I got you. Okay. And then what's TapeOut?
TapeOut is basically when you have the GDS2 file done and you're handing it over to the foundry. Once you hand it over to the foundry, it's basically done. So through the next month, you got about 1 month DRC, which is a design rule check. That design rule check will go through, like, you know, you got your ABC waivers. I don't know the actual like waiver statuses, but you have like critical and non-critical. Non-critical waivers you don't have to do anything with. That's just like, hey, take a look. If you see this as a problem, do something. The critical ones you have to change, but this is basically a last check before you actually, you know, start making your go off to make your mask set. So,
okay.
And even during the mask set, I mean, you take your precautions to where you only produce, you know, half the full wafers, and then you keep half back in case you have to make any small changes. And it's more of a like a respin. So
it's just more of the quality control process.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
for sure.
Gotcha.
And then actually, and this is another aspect of the microcontroller, which a lot of any errors that can happen in the final product can actually be updated through software, strictly through the microcontroller.
Okay.
Which is actually really, really good on our part as well. So if
like
there is any
OTA,
small
okay.
things that we want to do, we can. And we don't need to actually physically change the design for the actual, you know, GDS2 file or anything.
Just push out a patch.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to the hardware, now, are you guys looking to do any other algos when, you know, Litecoin, Doge, this whole Hashblade comes to fruition? Are you guys going to try to do SHA-256 or anything along those lines when it comes to that?
Yeah, correct. We will be going after. We don't really know which algo we'll go after first because a lot can change in the next 6 months to a year. We actually know a few other companies that are coming out with some SHA chips, which are very interesting. And we don't know their specs yet, but we actually preliminary. We got some very good design in our ASIC that we'll be able to transfer over to another design. So
okay.
we're definitely looking at some, but I would say that we're not set on any. But we got some good numbers. But until those are like hard, then we'll come out to the market and let people know.
If I had to guess, you're probably referencing jingle mining. I know there was a rumor that they were coming out with a more efficient Bitcoin miner at some point. I know we don't really know too much about it, but they said like beginning of next year they should have something on the lines for an efficient Bitcoin miner. And I know everybody's excited about it, so I'd be interested to see what you guys could do with your chip.
Well, really, it's getting more and more tough for small companies unless you got the access to capital. I mean, the silicon industry is extremely expensive. And that's another reason why Bitman, MicroBT, everybody else wants to go down to these bleeding edge technologies, because the cost to get in to even like compete is extremely high. And so you better not only have a good design. I think that's why you've seen a lot of good reaction from like Chain Reaction. There's another one, Armadillo or something, but they got some good specs on theirs, but I think they're on the 7 nanometer compared to 5 or sub 5. So
okay, yeah, actually that's a good segue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's a good segue. So like there was people asking like, why work on the 12 nanometer chip? I'm not the guy to really get into the technicals on this stuff. I was hoping Dad down there would ask, where is it this way? Mr. Max Voltage would ask this question. But yeah, so why work on the 12 nanometer chip versus just going directly down to the 7?
I would actually say cost.
Yeah, cost.
Okay.
It's Moore's law. I mean, you can only go down and go down. A lot of these companies, especially our largest competitor, they basically take the same design down a node. That's all they do. It doesn't seem like they really do any improvements because they don't have to. They have the money to just take it down a node. They get the efficiency from being on a smaller node, and that's it. But then when it's a lot cheaper for us. I mean, we're about $6.5 million into this design, and that's a lot less than going down like what I just said. Quoting for a 5 or 7. So your capital needs of actually designing for this node and the manufacturing of it, because I don't even want to guess what the wafer costs that they have going into those lower nodes as well, because that, especially if you're getting down to 3, that's ridiculous, man. That is some very expensive bills to pay.
Yeah, the 12 nanometer is one of those things where it's really available because you have the car companies that are the fabs are trying to get them to come down to a lower node because they want to decommission the older ones. But the car companies are like, why? We don't have space constraints. We don't need all that much processing. We'll just stay with where we are and not have the cost. So these middle ones are the ones 14 and 12 are the ones where there's availability.
Oh yeah, and that helps us out a lot because I mean it's fighting for line space, especially with AI really coming in. I feel like these larger ASIC manufacturers for mining are going to have issues getting line space. I mean, if we have another bull run, they're going to be stuck out in the wind because they won't be able to produce. So,
yeah, that makes total sense.
I know Apple alone lowers the cost for everybody that runs on those lower nodes because they produce so much.
So I had a question about the math. So the board that we got that we played with out in DC with you guys, which by the way, thanks again for inviting us. That was
Thanks for coming.
Awesome experience.
Thank you.
Max, you should have been there, man. It was great. So the board itself, round numbers, it was getting like 475 hash.
Yeah.
And that's one tile. So we've got 255 more of those per chip and then 128 chips. With the existing hash rate that was on the prototype, that only comes out to about 15 mega hash per board. Is it just because it's a prototype, you're not fine-tuning the efficiency like you will on the final product, and this is just showing that it works when you plug it in? It's not, this isn't going to be the final chip design.
Yeah.
No. I mean, but the aspect of it will be, it's just more compressed. Basically, when we made the ASIC for the MPW run to test it, it's basically blown up. So we'll be able to test every aspect of the chip more efficiently. And what was good about this is when you actually look at the design on that board, it's probably, I would say, 8 to 10x expanded. So you have a lot of latency between, how fast everything communicates. When you compress all that, and then you're times it by 255, and that's all compressed, and everything's talking to each other way quicker. I mean, it's basically comparing like apples to semi-trailers. You can't really like compare it because it's more along the lines of us using cadence and being able to test the critical architecture needed in our design on the MPW, and then showing it, everything running on the board and scaling it up, putting more tiles on it, putting everything else, even, bashing it with more and more software to basically stress it to where we know that the simulations are going to be working and validated to the point that we can go straight to market with it. And that's what we've accomplished.
And it's also not running on maximum frequency.
Yeah, correct.
We only have a limited amount of chips. So for, if everything was running at the maximum speed and we burnt them up, we wouldn't have enough for do all the testing.
Or have enough for you guys to destroy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that must have hurt a little bit watching us drill those chips.
Oh, I mean, we basically came to a conclusion on those anyway. So it's that's no worry.
It hurt me. It hurt me for sure. I was like, I can just imagine how they must feel watching us do this. Now, you guys, so I saw actually the pre-orders, right? You guys are, like you were talking about it a little bit earlier, like the server style where they're just going to be plug and play 10 of those hash boards into one case. Now, are you guys planning on doing like a smaller version of that where there's only like, say like a mini box miner version where there'll be like 2 or 3 inside a little case and sell like a variant of it?
Well, I mean, actually, we are probably looking more closely into doing the L3 Plus, L3 Plus Plus. I mean, we'll be able to stack on a bunch of chips on basically a rectangular blade, and you can take your blades out, download some, software firmware, and you're good to go. You just plug and play on that, and then now you got 4 boards. The only thing I don't really like about it is that you still got that high pitched squeal of fans. I mean, that's actually our case is quite overkill for what you're actually needed, though. I mean, it's awesome for GPUs, but I mean, for ASICs, you don't need anything for ASICs. I mean, the communication that runs is nothing.
Yeah, because all that can run over an X1 lane, right? You don't need a full like X16 for it or something.
No,
You had mentioned in the speech for the Litecoin Summit that you had a smart PSU you guys were working on. Is that still in the works? Do you have other, devices or hardware, equipment, things that you'll be providing or supplying as well?
Yeah, I mean, we're still working on the smart PSU. We actually went back to, oh, there you go. Christian's going to go get it. He's at the office. And we're actually talking about potentially shipping the smart PSUs out with the cases as well.
Oh,
Okay.
cool. In the
Which would be
server
kind of
case.
cool. Yeah. But Christian could fill you in on that. I know him and Art are taking key on that as well.
Yeah, this is
Oh, he went to get one.
smart PSU.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's
That's cool as hell.
networked.
And it also actually have an on and off button.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So many of those don't.
That doesn't happen much.
No. It's like such an easy thing to put on there.
Yeah,
Right.
This is actually a smart PSU that's made for, well, so you could actually measure the power that each ASIC are using. That's also, if you're, having this remotely in your basement or in your garage, and you want to know if all of the miners are running properly and they're drawing the equal power, you can also use it for grid balancing and stuff like that.
See, that's amazing because, like, right now what we have to do as miners is either get like one of those switched PDUs where you can control the ports, or you got to have like ubiquity to be able to, on and off your unit, in the dashboard or on your phone as you go. So that's totally useful, at least in our application. It's amazing.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the industry's been needing it for a while. I mean, it's like, as I said in the Litecoin conference, decentralized grid balancing, at scale. So, I mean, allow people to enroll or not. But I mean, that's more like the, kind of a side project that we've started working on. I mean, another one that we actually have is software. I can't really say when we're going to release it, but it's, we have we have released it to some of the shareholders to test out. But it's called WIC. It's basically an internally used like encryption messaging application. So, like, stay tuned for that because that's going to be pretty cool. It's more of if you got something sensitive to send, you can use that. It's not used 100% of the time, but if things are going to be shared, that you can use this app. But we use it more for like insider, protection than anything.
So you also mentioned that you'll have about 1 megawatt of self-mining. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I'll probably say 5 to 10%. That'll be the control. Like each batch or each manufacturer unit will probably be taken, randomly. We're not going to be taking like every 10th, but it should be more randomly than when you're actually testing it. But we'll just take those outside and literally plug them in at our facility, both in the U.S. and in Norway. Because that's really going to help out with the advanced RMA program because it's, whatever batch, because each unit's going to be serialized, especially for quality control. But we'll be able to match it directly with what we've taken nearest to that and, identify any issues that potentially could be, in that batch.
And that yield, that's all going to be just hash blades, right?
Yeah, hash blade. I mean, that's the only product that we have as of now.
Yeah.
We've discussed having the USB because we could really pump those out as well. Have like 10 ASICs on it, but that's until that comes to fruition, we're not bragging about it or anything.
Now you also mentioned in here Filecoin, promising architecture undergoing final testing. What are you doing with Filecoin?
Christian, you're the man.
Well, we developed our own setup that's doing the Filecoin pretty fast. That's basically.
So is that a storage component or what is that?
It's the total architecture, including the storage. So it's.
Okay. So it's like a compute node, basically built specifically for Filecoin storage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, rough estimates on it were the Super Micro had a complete unit come out. We got to testing because, I mean, Arva and Christian have done a lot with GPU mining and, clusters and everything. And we actually saw some huge benefits to run stuff in parallel. And the Super Micro unit that they released, I think, a year and a half ago, I mean, at that point, we per sector sealed, we were beating them by for cost. It was about like 10x, I believe. So It's quite efficient, very efficient.
Wow.
I mean, unfortunately, Filecoin is doing very good, almost as good as Casper right now.
That's really good.
Not at all.
They're as good as Casper.
I mean, Filecoin is not doing too hot right now.
I was gonna
No.
say, is it really? I was just about to look it up.
Yeah,
No way.
Kind of surprised me. Like, holy shit. Yeah.
I think I checked the price a few weeks back, and it was like $3 or something.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be improved for them to, really gain market share. I mean, it's hard to compete with
They need to
massive companies like Amazon or Microsoft or any of them. So
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of hard to create a true decentralized storage layer for like all of Web3 or a majority of Web3 because there's so many other services out there that make that storage level just fucking dirt cheap.
yeah. Well, and then they make it cheap, and then you get in, and it's really hard to leave.
Yeah, that egress data charges will hit you every time.
Yes.
It's free to bring it in, but it'll charge you to get it back out. Thanks, Azure.
Right. I had one question about so other OEMs, like if customers come forth and ask you to build like a custom design, are you guys open to doing things like that for like bigger companies, or are you trying to like just kind of kick them off?
No, I mean, say somebody got a bunch of S9s. I mean, a lot of people in those older facilities, they built the electrical infrastructure literally around the miners. It wasn't as dynamic as it is today, planning for the future if design changes or anything happen. So if they do come to us, of course, they got to buy whatever many units, but they also have to pay for the NRE costs associated with the system design and the software needed to run on those platforms.
Okay, so more or less
I
open
mean,
to it.
I would probably say the only one that we're looking to potentially cover is the L3 plus.
Makes sense.
Are there a lot of farms out there that are dedicated to script specifically? Like you always see, and it's my ignorance for being in the industry for such a short amount of time, and you always see like the documentaries on the biggest Bitcoin mining facility, and we see fellow YouTubers go and tour these other big Bitcoin specific mining groups. Mm-hmm. Do they have like a community like that where it's just script, like Litecoin, Dogecoin in a freaking warehouse?
Yeah, but it's not as big, so you have more of a smaller scale. I mean, you see a lot of these Bitcoin miners, they don't want these huge facilities anymore. They want like 5 megs so they can move on a dime. Mm. But that's probably, where you're at with like the script miners. They don't have those massive facilities as Bitcoin does. Now, I actually never want that to happen because, I mean, I'm a big believer. I've said it over and over. I mean, Bitcoin has a hardware problem. I mean, we see it as decentralization is about the number of miners mining, not the number of ASICs running. It's kind of like our, ethos, because it's you have to have the small guy benefit, or else you're just scaring money out of this industry.
Well, I think we went through my list of questions here. Max, Chump, did you guys have anything else that you wanted to ask in our last couple of minutes here?
The only real last question that I could think of is people were asking if the ability to overclock the chips. I know that we spoke to the ASIC designer when we were down there in Washington, and he stated that really they're pretty much just full bore out of the gates. Do you want to comment on that a little bit, or?
Yeah, so basically the microcontroller not only does it turn off tiles if it's not hashing, but it also optimizes the clock frequency on the fly. So it will maximize it 24/7, and as the chip ages, say after 3, 5, 6 years, it'll still run at the optimal clock frequency that the aging silicon will run at. So we don't need anybody else to overclock it when we're already pushing the ASIC, as hard as it should be. And plus, we don't want a lot of people. We see this as the best way to mitigate a ton of returns because someone downloaded some bad software and destroyed the cards.
Yeah, basically, we set the clock frequency, and we could set the clock frequency way lower, so it's able to overclock. But it's basically not overclocking. It's just like reduced clock frequency, and then you upclock it. So.
Right, because I know like I have one of those little Bitcoin USB miners, the Gecko Science ones, right? And I know you can change the frequency from like 350 to 400, and you'll get a little bit more hash rate. But
yeah,
why not just open them up full bore right out of the gates? It just, I don't know, makes sense
Yeah,
to me to do it that way. So I get what you're saying.
I got that same one.
Yeah.
I just
I
can't
mean, hey,
believe
it's a great idea.
S17 ASIC on it.
Right. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see what you guys come up with. There was people asking if we would be able to remotely Wireshark the unit to, I don't know, look into it, I guess.
So
Max, why don't you ask it? How about that?
Well, okay, so I understand the history. So the history is there were certain miners that came out to market and were rug pulls because nobody could really see kind of proof of the pudding type of thing. And of course, you got all these skeptics who are like, yeah, but you didn't see this. Yeah, but you didn't see that when all those guys went out to Washington, D.C. And one of the things that came up was, could they have been doing something in the background, even though you're sending things to that pool and this pool, that they could have been doing, you know, behind the curtain type of thing?
I actually got a perfect answer for that.
Good.
So first off, this is a test board, and we don't want somebody to see our design because that's $6.5 million in the hole for us and our investors. However, even better yet, why would we be faking anything for 450 hash?
Yeah,
It didn't take 30 minutes to collect to the pool and be like, man, these guys, this stuff is blazing. I mean, they must be faking this. What? It's 450 hash. No, dude. I'm sorry. I mean, what are we faking?
I'm so happy you just said it like that. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
All right, dude. Yeah, this we got a huge farm running in China. It's,
Pushing 400 hashes.
permanent,
Yeah.
You know, 450 hash, 480 hash. You know.
That was great.
As long as
So
we're
it's,
kind of on that outlier of questioning. So how long is your burn-in time for your hash blades before they get sent to customers?
Well, I mean, if we're running on industry standard, we're running about a year. And we'll continue to update the market that your hash blade will be delayed another month if the times are good. But as soon as the market crashes, we'll start shipping.
Yeah, right.
Oh, me and Christian lived through that. Oh,
Yeah.
And it's funny we joke about that, but even when we were in DC the day before we went, to the event to meet you guys, Chump and I are looking at the hash rate. Like, are they mining on these already? Do they already have a big farm out there? And we're looking at what it's being. Oh, well, maybe this is Bitmain doing their L9 or L7 plus or whatever the next iteration is of some miners, script miner that they're pushing out there. And it's a shame that we actually think that I don't know. It's
I mean, we're coming from a very opaque industry, and we're really trying to bring a lot of transparency up to it. I mean, it's amazing, unfortunately, that people don't understand what being a public company entails. Like when I say, hey, listen, we're going to be self-mining 5-10% of the hash rate. We're going to have a hash rate or a hash blade ship counter on our website so people can better understand the hash rate that's coming online and just have a more thorough understanding instead of not knowing anything. And they're like, oh, hey, you're not going to do that. Check our financials. What are you going to do? Like, we're a public company. I mean, we have to update the investors with, important information. We can't be, we're self-mining 5%, but then we tell the market and we're mining 7%. No, we have to tell them, we're at 7%, self-mining on the script algo right now for Litecoin, Dogecoin. Like unfortunately, that is the case with a lot of people seeing that the industry that we're in, but, we want to bring, we want to be the light at the end of the tunnel.
So how much can I buy in to get some of this insider information?
Depends on the kickback.
Oh, that's perfect.
No, they take that quite strict. I mean, it's and I do like that. I think Norway should really set the standard for the world. I know as an American, when I first came over here, I was like, man, dude, everything's public. Like you can see how much I paid in taxes last year. You can see how much Christian paid. You can see our net worth. You can see the company financials. You can see everything. There's nothing hidden. It's not some dude hiding behind a wallet, or some nefarious, email or something. I'm a big fan of this country, so I'm glad we're based out of here.
All right. Well, we've been talking for about an hour. Chump, Max, anything else that you guys want to wrap up here?
I think I'm good. I mean, to be honest, I know there's been a lot of skepticism in the whole community with everything, but it's like, man, the amount of effort you guys would have had to put in to go through this whole thing to make a rug is like, It's
Well,
way
I
too
mean-
much effort. Nobody does that. Like,
Well,
it's
I'll
crazy.
tell you
So,
what, man, we're not that good as scammers if we're burning about $6.5 million already.
crazy. It's crazy. Well,
Like I
Yeah.
don't really, yeah, I don't understand that. So
yep. You
but
and me,
yeah, there
you
is,
and me
but
both.
I mean, it's not really the it's just more the skepticism, and again, it's all about the history of the industry in the past. But I would also say there's a large knowledge gap between the manufacturers and the actual miners, because the manufacturer have been so secretive. And
Right.
we
issues.
definitely want to bring light to that, and we're happy to answer any questions about what process we're in and how things work, and bring that to light, because a lot of people don't understand how silicone comes to market. I mean, Apple, it's $1 billion for them to make like a M1 chip. You think they're using awesome software with their designers to make a chip before it comes to market and goes to production. Like, that's it. They're not producing every other week at TSMC to do that. So the software has gotten extremely well, especially over the last, like, I'd say 5-10 years. It's gotten groundbreakingly efficient.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
I
thank
mean,
you
that's
for coming on, man. I appreciate it for sure. Answered a lot of my questions.
Yeah,
I know.
Ben, Christian, thank you for your time. Absolutely. Is there anything that you wanted to, final thoughts or like state to any of the viewers, or anything about this project or anything else you have going on, and what's a good way that anybody could ask any follow-up questions to you, directly, like through your website or what?
Yeah, I would say, definitely thanks for watching. And we're just a new hardware company bringing a new script ASIC to market. And we're filling people in along the way. And I would say, if you want to learn more, you can visit our website at lokotech.com. And if you want to reach out, you can go to support@lokotech.com or .no. I can't remember. I think we just changed it to .com. But it's either .no or .com. I mean, I know our tech guys are changing things up since we opened up pre-sales. Or just even reach out through sales. It'll hit one of us or one of the other people on our team. And we'll be happy to answer anybody's questions as soon as we can. So,
Fantastic. Thanks again, guys.
all right, appreciate it. Thanks for having us on.